a hand count. We were hand counting what Maricopa County turned over. But we also knew that at the beginning we called it forensics, and then they went to paper exam. So we knew that that would delve into it further. By the end of the first week, going into the second week, there were things that started to become much more evident because you were able to really watch what the ballots were doing. In the beginning, it was a little bit unsure, but the ballots didn't always look the same. There were different ballots. There were different ballots that were cast. They looked a little different, but the paper started appearing different. That was my first sign that I needed to start paying a little bit more attention. We saw yellow hue, different colors of white, different color of a gray hue. When it reached over into the forensic side, you could hone in a little bit more because it would show up on a screen for us so we could see it. Going back to the hand counting part, when you started watching the paper, because they were only counting the presidential and the Senate, it was a lot easier to focus in, and I learned very quickly to explain to the other observers, watch the presidential election. Watch, if you want to see anything, watch the presidential election. We did start seeing the patterns pretty quick. But when you start seeing, as Shauna said in the video, when you start seeing it, it wasn't always the same pattern. They would change. They would change from box to box. But the patterns needed to repeat. And then when we saw a repeat of a pattern, sometimes 10 to 2, then 8 to 4, then 10 to 2, and 8 to 4, it would change. We started documenting it. We started documenting it and letting them know with the timestamp of when we saw it and what table we were at. So that way, all the video would be able to say what box it was in. Later on, we started documenting exactly if we heard what batch it was on, and documenting the box so they could go back and reevaluate the boxes a little deeper, especially on the forensic side. Some of the things that we saw as a turnstile was going around is when you cast your ballot, you use a pen, it creates a little divot as you're filling in that oval. So you could see, even from the back side, if somebody used a pen to create their ballot. When you start seeing ballot after ballot that there's no divots, and they're perfect. Those ovals were perfect. You saw it repeat after repeat. We would notate that as well. Again, it raises your question, what I'm seeing should not be. It is true, we had a lot of Sharpies, that was pretty identifiable because it would jump out at you, it would bleed all the way through. The one part that I personally went, whoa. I got a box that one of the first times that I saw it, as it was going around, started to see a complete red sheen go across, and that included the oval filled in. Everything had a reflection the exact same. And I would see it 5, 6, 7, 8 ballots in a row, and then it would stop for a while. It wasn't on every single ballot, but there were always groupings of them. I would get somebody else, and I would always instruct the other observers, have them validate what you're seeing, so then we would document it. It just so happened on the afternoon shift, I had a gentleman who, he was a printer. He owned a printing business. First time he saw that, he came to me, he goes, that's a printed ballot. And this whole box is printed. He could actually identify, because it was his business, he had been doing it for over 30 years. And I said, you need to document, timestamp what you're seeing, so they can look at this further. It is not for us to judge it, it's for us to observe it, see it, document it. When we got to the forensic side, very early on we also had a black box, they did black light, but there was, the ambient light at the Coliseum did play a part that you couldn't see it all the time. It needed to be a much darker, so they took that away pretty quickly because it wasn't consistent for them. But they utilized the UV lights with digital cameras. And when you started to see ovals that were filled in with a kaleidoscope type effect, I started going, I don't believe one pen can do that. It's certainly not a Sharpie, because a Sharpie was identifiable. When we started to see blue showing through with red and copper, you had multiple colors coming through. We would document what we saw. All of this led to anything that we documented on there. I know that they thoroughly would investigate further and raise questions further of what they did. I cannot begin to say how many ballots that we questioned far outweighed what we thought looked like a good ballot. If you would ask me, being there every day, I was there usually to help transition from the first shift into the second shift, and then when we added the third shift, I would help them transition for the third shift so everybody could get on. It would happen no matter what time of day, no matter what table you went to. If you do not think or believe that something was wrong, of anything to know, not every ballot was done with a human hand. It was obvious to those of us observing. It is our duty to protect the right to vote. It is our duty to protect the election integrity. And it was interesting to me, the short little clip that they showed of me was when I was so angry. There were other things that they had asked of me, but I had gotten to the point where I was angry. And it brings me back to that very point. When my mom found out that I had been selected to be a part of the audit and to lead, she said, keep going. To be honest with you, my mom spent 5 times in and out of the hospital. She was not expected to live. She was given a life sentence. She told me, keep going. 10 days ago, we celebrated her 90th birthday. And now she tells me, keep going. I want to see that guy out of the White House. Thank you.
Our sound guy wants to go home. We've gone way over program, so we're almost done, I promise. Next up, Mark Chazen. He's another one. He worked his tail off. He was there for us. You know, it was interesting running a department in this audit because we didn't know how we were going to do it. But look at the incredible people that we were able to put into leadership and what they were able to do. Come on, Neil. And let's go, Brandon.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for hanging in there. Thanks for your patience. I know about patience. I've been patient a long time to get this audit done. Live in Sun City. My journey started on election night, as everybody's did. And I had a follow-up phone call asking me if I wanted to be a poll watcher and so on. And I said, no, I think I did my patriotic duty, and I'm good. Well, then I started to see all the shenanigans going on, and I'm going like, holy mackerel, and I'll keep it clean. And I was starting to be upset. And when I started to hear that there might be an audit and volunteers are being looked for, it took me, I don't know how many, 3 or 4 different tries filling out applications to volunteer. And finally I got a call, come on down, you've been vetted, let's get to work. I get there and I am overwhelmed at what is going on inside the Coliseum. And went through the training, I get in there, I start doing what I do, I watch, I look, I absorb. I saw a lot of things everybody else is seeing, Kimberly, Nancy, all my other co-volunteers. When you see 67 votes for Biden go by in a row, and only 17 out of that group for Trump, and a few liberals and write-ins and so on. And you say, well, okay, this table here. I was fortunate I was able to have the freedom to walk the whole Coliseum and look and watch and observe whatever I wanted. I would go around to these carousel tables and I would see the same thing over and over again. A group of ballots, a larger group of ballots for Biden and a few for Trump. I want those odds because I'm going to Vegas, period. The paper quality, what is supposed to have been mail-in ballots, standing up straight and solid in the carousels as they go around getting counted. How does that happen? No creases. If they're mail-in, they had to be in. So you see that, and you start wondering, and you start realizing, yeah, this shit was stolen. I'm sorry. But as you start walking the floor and you keep seeing it one table after another, paper that doesn't look the same, paper that's like rice paper, you can see the bubbles on the ballots that are being filled in. And I'm telling you, if you put one on top of the other, those bubbles line up exactly. A lot of them don't, because they were filled in by a human. And I'll let your imagination figure out how the other ones got filled in. As Nancy and Kimberly were saying, you walked the floor on the other side of the Coliseum, there was PE, it was paper examination, the forensic stuff, which was really cool. We got to look at the display on the screen that was magnified through lenses and a forensic camera. And you can see the different colors of paper. You can see the different edges that were more finite than fuzzy, and the targets that were the crosshairs that were not in the targets. You have a crosshair, the target sitting here, and the crosshair was in another zip code. And when I brought that up to my lead, he went and got me an answer, and his answer, he was told, the answer is, oh well, they're like that because those things are printed on mobile printers. So they need to be recalibrated and there isn't enough time. Don't worry about it. Well, yeah, okay, when you see tens of thousands of them, you got my undivided attention. The ink was different. When the ballots were magnified, you can see dot matrix fill-ins of bubbles. So there was a lot of shenanigans going on. The time that the ballot counting tables, when the individuals had to sit there and organize the box of ballots to figure out how many ballots went with this batch and match them up, it started making sense while this was all taking time. But Coliseum was air conditioned. Once that was all over and we had to do the third count, that was just another, right? These two ladies both had health issues. Bless you. I'm getting emotional, I'm sorry. My vote was stolen. Fuck you for stealing my vote. Thank you.
Okay. 9 men founded this country. There was only one David that defeated Goliath. Esther stood up. Guys, answer the call. I can tell you we created a family in Maricopa County like you would never believe. And that's what we need right now. God is calling his army, and I hope you'll join us. God bless you. Thank you, guys.